Namaste and greetings from Indic Academy. Such a privilege to have you with us, Maitrigoswami ji. And you've been part of Indica courses, conducting two courses for us. And thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about the early influences in your life which made you turn towards the spiritual path and towards um, Vedanta and your own philosophy
As a
tradition?
descendant of Vallabhacharya, I have always been part of these things, fortunately, since childhood. So, never had any distraction in my life other than some career things which happened in between. I wanted to pursue medical science at a young age. But all of a sudden, when I passed my 10th standard and I wanted to go through the science field, my father said that we are inherited with this knowledge, so you should do what we are here for. So, as he inspired me, so I started learning Sanskrit from 11th standard, and then I pursued my MA with Vedant, and now this is what my life is.
Yeah. So when you talk about heritage and we talk about ancestry, how was the atmosphere in your house, and what aspects of the teachings are lived? Like for instance, we have an ancestral connect to Carnatic Bhagyakara Tyagaraja Swami. So
Hmm.
for us, his Bhakti tradition is paramount more than his Sangeetam tradition.
Hmm.
Like for others, it's his music that is the main
True.
uh, takeaways. So, how is it for your family person?
For me, we have been studying the scriptures since my childhood. My father used to teach me those things. Then Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Mahapuran, these have been the parts of daily part to be done in the morning. And then we perform seva of Shri Krishna at home. So studying the scriptures of Sampradaya, being associated with the disciples of Sampradaya, and then to talk about the Sampradaya, these are the aspects which we are related with. So since I was 12 years old, I started teaching some basic things, and since then I'm doing the same thing. So in the family background, because we are followers of Vallabhacharya tradition, so rather than any formal education thing, we are inherited with the principles of Sampradaya with oral tradition. It means my father will teach me, my grandfather will teach me, my mother will say something. So likewise, we just go on with all those things. And then it comes that we need to go through the procedural education system of the Sampradaya. And then it starts with the studying the basic principles of Sampradaya until the senior texts.
So it's clearly a living tradition passed through several generations.
Yeah.
But when we offer it as a course in a modern context,
Hmm.
sometimes not face to face, how does the tradition adapt to that? And are we, in a way, losing something? We might be. But what are we gaining also? Because more access now, more people can be taught these values.
Yeah. The losing thing is that because the lifestyles have changed nowadays, so people feel that there are many such principles which are not being very much easy to be lived nowadays. So, for example, we have a basic principle of offering everything to the deity at our own houses, and then to about the food things, for example, we just the principle of the sampradaya says that we should survive only on the naivedya which has been offered to the deity. But now, with the changing times, with the people traveling all around the world and all these things, so people find it a bit difficult. For example, serving the deities at home twice a day or once a day with the fast lifestyle these days, all the family members are working nowadays. So these are the basic things which needs to be followed, but people feel it a bit difficult nowadays. So these are the problems which they share with us when we about the disciple class. Other than those who are academically interested in understanding the philosophy of Vallabhacharya, in that case, it is not a big deal. Because if you are an academic person who is trying to understand him, who is a part of the comparative philosophical schools, in that case, propagating those things is very easy. But about the living aspect of the sampradaya, it is getting a bit difficult. But yeah, people are finding some modern solution to those things. Now, we remain in a dilemma because we are from the traditional things. and people try to find the modern solutions to the same, and then there is a merging line between both the times. So that remains a bit difficult, but other than that, everything is going on in a very good way.
Yeah. So, is um like in Hinduism, in Sanatana Dharma, there is no overlooking authority. I mean, there's nobody to tell you you're, doing wrong, not on a daily basis.
Definitely.
We have guidelines, we have, people to guide us, but there is nothing, there's nothing that, is a sin or is sinful or is wrong. You're not punished like how other, religions tend to, if you don't do something. So, given that, do you feel there's a laxity in how we carry out our responsibilities?
Definitely it is.
If it's
Because
impunity, yeah.
Shastras is the only thing which will guide you. And if a person is dedicated towards the same, then he will, it is all about our own feelings. That my heart will say that you are doing this, which is wrong. And there won't be a person to supervise you all the time. Until we are child, at that time our parents are there to guide us. But once we get old, there is no one to guide us every day. But we ourselves need to be dedicated towards the tradition. Only then it is possible. Secondly, what I feel is that those who tend to ignore the rules and who are habituated with doing that thing, we don't even need such people. Personally, I feel so. Because if you are not wholeheartedly dedicated towards the system, then that sort of person will ultimately degrade the whole tradition. So it is better to not have all those loose-minded people around, and rather it is good to have such dedicated people who would be fully dedicated towards the system.
Like some people were talking like just like we have the karma kanda, should we have a sadhana kanda? Like now sadhana has become such a big buzzword because of the West.
Hmm.
They talk about yoga, having practice sadhana. But what is sadhana in your parampara? What does it mean? What are the components of practice?
The components of practice carry two things basically. They are taken, we can understand it from the Navada Bhakti aspect as discussed in Bhagavat. So, because we are from the Vaishnavite Bhakti tradition, so Bhagavat is considered as the primary text for to be followed. So, Seva and Katha, these are the two aspects which are taken up from the Navada Bhakti thing. So, Shravan, Kirtan and Smaran, they go with the Katha Paksha, and from Pada Sevan till Atma Nivedan, it goes with the Seva Paksha. So on daily basis, a person who is initiated through Brahma Sambandha Diksha, we have two patterns for Diksha. Primary is the Sharana Diksha, which means to take ultimate resort in Bhagavan Shri Krishna. And after that, a person is asked to understand the scriptures of Sampradaya, to read Gita, Bhagavat, etc. for understanding the form of Bhakti and form of the deity, form of Krishna. And then once you are in on the senior level, at that time that person is initiated through Brahma Sambandha Diksha, and he is asked to serve Bhagavan Shri Krishna at his own house daily. So, Seva and Katha, these are the two aspects of sadhana primarily, which a person should follow throughout his life. And they are, if a person, the whole family is supportive towards the system, then it is quite better and it becomes easy for the person to follow. And if he is all alone to do everything, in that case, it is a bit difficult, but still it is pursuable.
See, the Ananda aspect is most visible when we look at non-Indians and the joyfulness of celebrating Shri Krishna. So, is that something that is, was that, is it something that, how do we convey or how is it that learned the joy of Sangeetam and dance and, rejoicing in Shri Krishna is all his myriad forms and his ways and his things. So how do we go to that level of one when the individual is not necessarily feeling because of his form and his existence in this avatar? How does one transcend that to that ultimate Ananda?
In our tradition, personally, we go with the procedure that first of all a person should be well versed with the shastric knowledge. It means Bhagavan Shri Krishna is not a human being, he is a devata. So the Deva Maryada of him, he being the Parabrahma, all those aspects needs to be understood so that a person can relate himself with him. So the philosophical knowledge of considering ourselves as a particle and he being the Anshi. So Ansh and Anshi is the relation philosophically we understand. So with that relation, we are able to understand that we have just forgotten the relation, but it is an inbuilt relation which we have to relish. All of us share with him primarily, without being a part of the sampradaya also. So once a person is able to personally relate his own self with Bhagavan, after that he can proceed towards the path of seva. And once he starts serving the deity on daily basis, we develop a type of loving connection with the deity with time being. Obviously, this is not a sudden procedure which can be pursued within a day or two. It takes a long time. But along with seva and katha, this goes in a cyclical way. So in this cyclical way, once a person is enrolled into that cyclical procedure, there will be a time. But obviously, the enjoyment of anand or the relishment, we uh, define it as bhajananand. It means the anand you receive or you feel being in the bhajana path, in the bhakti path. So that bhajananand is felt only when a person is on a very senior level, on a very senior post. And all those development within the steps of bhakti are known as prem, asakti, and vyasan. So vyasan is the state in which a person is so much engrossed within the devotional procedure that he will feel that I cannot survive without this. So on that level, a person is able to feel the anand of Sri Krishna. But for that, a person needs to primarily enroll into the whole procedure.
Yeah. So in the course, could you tell us about the structure of the courses that you have done so that anyone who wants to enroll in the future, what would be the how do you such a big tradition with so many beautiful aspects? How do we bring it down into a course?
Yeah. In the previous course, which I did on Vallabhacharya and his life and works, I tried to introduce Vallabhacharya as an acharya among all the other acharyas and his legacy, how his life was, and how he was ordered by Bhagavan Shri Krishna to propagate the path of bhakti. And then I went through the philosophical school of Vallabhacharya and what is his stand among all the other philosophical schools. And then I taught the 16 primary texts which were written by him. And within an hour, within each class, I tried to provide the crux of that text, that what primarily he wants to say. The Shodash Granthas are considered as the most primary text associated with him, which were authored by him. So I taught all the 16 text primarily and the subject matter basically which was discussed in that through the course, and ultimately it concluded with the whole aspect of Vallabhacharya and how he propagated the path of bhakti. So that was what I had did in the previous course. As of now, I am teaching the course on Puran and how the Puranas are affiliated with the Vedic principles. So Puranas are being cursed by many Indologist people as well, and also by the Western scholars, by saying that these should be considered as the secondary text, and they are all the mythological tales for entertaining people. But technically, what I am trying to do in this course is that we should keep the Vedic principles and Puranic principles parallel to each other, and we need to try the points of convergence between both these so that we can understand that how the principles are trying to affiliate with each other. So, how the Vedas are being elaborated in the Puran, this is what I am doing as of now. So I introduced that aspect in the primary classes. I'm done with 6 classes for now. Half of those are remaining. So in that I will go with each and every aspect of Puran, starting from Panchalakshan and Dashalakshan of Puran, and then I'll proceed towards how each and every segment is explaining the principle of faith.
Could you give one example of where there is illustration in the Puranas from Vedic texts?
Yeah. For example, the first shloka of Bhagavat, it is parallel to the Gayatri mantra, and the Bhagavat is considered as Mahapuran with the Dasha Lakshanas. So Bhagavat is trying to introduce that Brahmic element through its first passage, and there Satyam Param Dhimahi, from there it is explaining that Satya Padarth which has been explained in Upanishad, the same element is being explained here. So the Chatushloki Bhagavat, which are the 4 verses which have been in the discussion between Brahma and Narayan, even in those verses, Brahma is trying to ask Narayan that what is your thought behind the creation? And then Narayan, through his four verses, is trying to explain the modes of creation, the modes of sustenance, the mode of liberation, and how the whole is destroyed. So those four aspects are discussing the four elements of Brahman, which are being discussed in Upanishad, Utpatti, Sthiti, Prayan, and Lay. So this is the direct parallelism which is being found in Bhagavat along with the Upanishad. So that's how it is found in all the other Puranas as well. Some are smaller in size, though they are being comprehensive with the principles, and the larger ones are being elaborating those principles. But they are in direct parallelism to each other.
Right. And do you think that like people, some people say that the Puranas were are there so that the complexity and the difficulty of the Vedas can be understood by the common man. So is that your understanding? And
Definitely it is. Definitely it is. Because what, for example, to a child, when we are teaching a child, at that time when we are trying to explain that this is A, rather than explaining him that letter, when we make him see an apple, we try to see that oh, A for apple. Now here you are illustrating an object which is in day-to-day use of that person, and that's how that person, that child would be able to understand that okay, this is the first letter from which the apple, this term is being made. So same way Puranas are trying to make those things easy. Whenever we are understanding the principles which are to be implemented in our day-to-day life, when we read those things, it is very easy. That, for example, if I am saying you that, okay, we ask you to serve Shri Krishna daily once you are enrolled into our tradition. Hearing this is very easy, but once you start living it, we find hundred of problems in our day-to-day life. That, okay, now I'm in this situation, how to do this? So this happens with each and every aspect of principle, even with the philosophical things and also with the things which are supposed to be implemented. So the Ved and Smriti Shastras, which are trying to explain us the modes of Purushartha, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha Purusharth, all those are being lived by the narratives in the Puran. So, for example, if we go through the life story of Sri Ram, there we find the complexity when he felt that what was his primary duty. So he had to choose between the duty of a husband and the duty of a king. So these are the complexities which we feel when we are implementing those principles in our day-to-day life. And those complexities can only be solved if a person goes through the Itihas and Puran aspect. So Smriti and Ved will directly preach us the principle, but they cannot preach us the implementive aspect. But the implementation aspect will be found from Itihas and Puran only. So that's how Puran are becoming supportive to the Vedic principles. And a person deprived of the knowledge of Itihas and Puran will never be able to conceive the principles of Ved and Smritis.
absolutely. In today's world where everything is simplified, and monetized and commercialized, we have our Indian knowledge systems being offered like how it is with allopathy. So you say, chant these five mantras for these number of days, and these are the outcomes.
Hmm.
But in a tradition like yours, how much time does it take for it to steep in? And do we actually get outcomes like that? Do you see a direct correlation between what like the stages, or do we have to have some karmic wherewithal within us for us to actually realize what they say will happen if we follow these steps?
The thing is that those who are following the path, they have felt so. Just the way Itihas and Puran are trying to explain that, okay, this Rishi performed penance for so long and then he was bestowed with this type of fruit. So same way, each and every sampradaya will have its own narratives of the acharyas who have received the fruits through their own experiences, who are sharing the experience with us, the disciples who have been directly related with the acharyas who have attained that fruit. So all these narratives are inspirational, who will just guide the person towards the path. Secondly, as we are the propagator of devotional part, we say that the grace of Bhagavan alone is the element which will guide a person towards the path of devotion. So that grace works. Thirdly, the thing is that how deeply you are involved in the tradition, definitely, it depends upon that. A person who is going on being involved on the adverse karmas will never attain the fruit. When I'm saying that we are a part of the devotional tradition, it doesn't mean that we are detached with the karma parampara and jnana parampara. Because following the Nitya Naimittik karma, as per the Smriti Shastras, is a primary duty to be done. Even the aspect of knowledge to understand the Ved, Gita, Bhagavad, Brahma Sutra, it is a primary element of the Sampradaya. So karma and gyan, they become supportive towards the path of devotion. But obviously, the ruling element will be the grace of Bhagavan. So person needs to be faithful towards Bhagavan. He should be able to realize the grace which is seen within him through the basic interest he is developing in the path, and then through the methods of seva and katha paksha, how they all are going through that, the person would be able to realize the fruit ultimately.
In your opinion, is it we have Dvaita, Vishishta Advaita, and we have uh, the three schools. So, do you think that it is possible for us to go beyond these separations and to be more united and see our goal or purpose as one?
Differences in the sadhana paddhati is all okay. And it is the secularism or this type of homogeneousness within the sampradaya doesn't mean that I'll start following the sadhana paddhati of everyone, because ultimately you need to stick to one sort of course. Even in school and in academic education, we stick to one type of course, but we remain knowledgeable with all the other informations. So about the differences within philosophical schools and also among the differences within the sampradayas, the acharyas have always been one. For example, Vallabhacharya, he is the propagator of Tadatmyavadi philosophy, which incorporates Dvait and Advait both. But his Shiksha Guru was from Madhva tradition, who was a Dvaita philosopher. But he never found that to be differentiating him. It was never a bit of problem. Same way, he got his son in educated with Madhusudan Saraswati, who is from Advaita Parampara, in spite of saying that Vallabhacharya is born to do the Khandan of Mayavada. But he never felt any problem with Madhusudan Saraswati being around. He made his son learn from him the Shastras. He was a Shiksha Guru. So the Acharyas have always been one, but the followers who are half knowledgeable, they fight among each other. So acharyas are always homogeneous, they are well disciplined, and they are one with each other. So even about Vallabhacharya, if I would say that though he is implementing the philosophy of Tadatmyavad and promoting the path of bhakti, still he is saying that Sarvavada Navasaram Nanavada Nurodhitat Brahma. It means Brahman is so huge, so large that you can never claim that exclusively my philosophical school will be defining the Brahman, because he is so huge that he is encompassing everything within him. So, in spite of doing Khandan of Sri Shankaracharya, Vallabhacharya is saying that he is the avatar of Mahadev and he is here with some or the other purpose, just the way I am here for some or the other purpose. So, we all, the Acharyas, as an Acharya is saying that I am fulfilling the orders of Bhagavan, same way all the other Acharyas are also fulfilling the orders of Bhagavan. So, if we try to understand that how open-minded they have been, that Brahman is having multiple perspective, I would say infinite perspective. So everyone is trying to attain one or the other perspective of that ultimate reality. In that case, we won't be having problem with anyone. But if we feel that we have exclusive right upon one aspect of Brahman, in that case, it creates problem. So the students, if they go through the writings of the acharyas who are the propagator of the path, no acharya has ever been distinguishing anyone from anyone else. So that understanding needs to be developed. In that case, all the conflicts will be resolved. But the half knowledge always creates problem.
So, like for instance, one foreigner, when I sent him the invite for the IOC conference, so he was seeing the Mathadipatis were being addressed as His Holiness. So he's saying, His Holiness is usually we will tell for the Bhagwan. So how can Dvaita tradition give His Holiness title to an Acharya of a Matha? So that was his question. How do we answer this question?
The question answer is that we see each and every propagating acharya and their legacy as the Shakti of Brahman. So in India, if I would say that in Sanatan tradition, we also worship our vehicles.
Hmm.
We also worship our houses. We also worship our appliances, everything, whatever we have around. Whenever we get a new thing, we will put a kumkum mark upon it and we worship it. It is a some type of worship. But the thing is that we are not worshipping the object, but we are worshipping the Shakti which is within him. And we are focusing upon that Shakti. So, for example, when we are worshipping our parents, we are worshipping the Palana Shakti within them. We are worshipping a guru, at that time we are worshipping the Jnana Shakti within them. So, with that respect, we worship the Shakti, and all those Shaktis are ultimately with the Brahman only, not with any mortal being. So we all are mortal beings, but we carry some or the other type of Shaktis which have been provided to us. So with that way, we address our gurus, our devatas, carrying the Shakti of the Brahmic element, and that's why it is not getting any sort of philosophical problem. So in spite of being Dvaitavadi, the Shakti is carried by Brahman, and there is a Advaita between the Shakti and Shaktiman. So with that respect, a guru is carrying the Jnana Shakti of Bhagavan. So we are worshipping that Shakti within him by addressing him with the same words which we use for Bhagavan.
Well, there's also this question about 108 and 1008. So when you add 1008 to Acharya, what difference does it make to whether it's 108 or 1008?
It is about the superiority of the person. So, for example, in olden times, it was about the usage of the term Shri. So, for example, one Shri was used for one sort of respectable person, double Shri was used for the Guru, five Shri were used for the Devatas. So, if I am worshipping Krishna, then I will use five Shri before Krishna. For my Guru, I will be using two Shri. For my parents, I will be using one Shri. Also, about the primary propagator of the tradition will be the primary Guru, and the later descendants who are the Diksha Gurus, they will be the secondary ones. So, in that way, it is about the hierarchy of the people, and based upon the superiority of them in that sort of hierarchy, these terms are used considering their position and their status within the system.
What is the role of women in the Sampradaya? Like in the Shakta tradition, obviously, Devi is primordial and primary energizing force. In our tradition, in your tradition, what is there a difference between the bhaktas in terms of do you identify with the feminine aspect, or is it like one dancer, Odissi dancer, was saying that when it comes to worship of Krishna, everybody is a woman who is in love with Krishna.
Huh.
So, ऐसे कुछ
Yeah, so that is the type of Bhakti Margya element that this thought was primarily promoted by Mirabai when she met a great devotee named Haridas ji in Vrindavan. So when she came to Vrindavan, she said that I wanted to have his darshan. So he said that as I am a Virakta Vaishnava, so I don't talk to women. So then at that time she interrupted and said that I had heard that Krishna was the only male in Vrindavan and all the other are gopis. So this is not about the gender things, but it is about a type of bhavana. It is an emotional state in which the Stri Shakti and Pum Shakti, they are considered as Bhogya and Bhokta Shakti, technically. So, Bhokta is the Purusha Shakti, and Bhogya is the female Shakti. So, in the devotional path, when you are considering yourself as a servant of Krishna, who is the master of everyone, so Krishna has that Bhokta Shakti within him, so he is the Purusha, and we all are his servants, and that's why we have Bhogya Shakti within us, because of which we are identified as females. So it is not about the gender roles, but it is about considering that Bhogya and Bhokta Shakti within the Swami and Sevaka.
So, what is the most salient feature which makes you, when you get up in the morning or you sleep, what is the thing that gives you the most spiritual happiness and content?
The thing is that as Vallabhacharya relates it with the philosophical understanding that just the way a child is a particle of his parents, and that's why there is nothing to be said, but it is his primordial duty to serve his parents who has given him the life and birth. Same way, we consider that we are particle of Bhagavan Shri Krishna who has created us. So he is like a father and mother and guru and everything to us. So it is our primordial duty to serve him, being a servant, and there is no other element which should be inspirational behind this. So we should consider ourselves as the primordial servant and he should be our primary master. And that is what this understanding provides a devotee an inspiration to serve him daily, and not it is not a forceful serving procedure, but it provides immense happiness to the devotee that I am on the right path and I'm able to find my master.
And we don't expect anything back.
No, nothing else. So in our devotional path, we say that it is Nirguna Bhakti. So Nirguna Bhakti, it means that even Bhakti is beyond Mukti. So a devotee will not even expect Mukti as a result of Bhakti, but this devotional journey itself is Mukti. So yeah, for that Vallabhacharya says that being associated with Krishna itself is above Mukti. So you should not even expect Mukti as a fruit of Bhakti. Bhakti itself is Mukti. So that is the most primary understanding a devotee who is initiated into the path should have. And with that thought, a person is initiated into a tradition that you are not expecting anything as a fruit, but you are enjoying the journey. There is no destination. You are supposed to enjoy the journey.
Fantastic. Thank you. On this
Thank you very
beautiful note, we shall end. Thank
Definitely.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.